Hi, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 7 of My Words, Our Journey, What If? My name is Monty, and today we'll start with Chapter 17, where we are back to the present day. Mitch knew his brain was not working at peak performance, but Aaron was proving to be more prepared than Mitch could ever have imagined. 3 weeks ago, he had purchased a 1976 Chevy that was now coming in extremely handy. It was a car that, under different circumstances, Aaron would not have been caught dead in. There were at least 3 different shades of red on the exterior, with several large dents throughout. The inside was not much better, but the engine seemed to be solid. At this point, he wouldn't be picky. He was still ill over Aaron risking their necks as he was trying to get in the car and talking to strangers outside the store. He could be frustrating, to say the least. The house appeared as any other on the upscale street, just outside of town. The main difference? This particular house was situated on 2 lots, giving it a much larger yard. The builders had used this space wisely and had positioned the house towards the back of the property. Actually, for someone not familiar with the street, after dark, without any lights on, the house would be missed. Built only 3 years prior, and having been lived in for only a short time, the previous owners had bought their dream home when it was built. Unfortunately, the dream turned into a nightmare, and the couple was unable to come to terms on what to do with the property since the divorce. Between lawyers, rumors of infidelity, and family, there was no resolution in sight. Mitch knew all this because he listened to Eric Reynolds telling his life story to anyone that would listen at the office. Mitch had never been one to air his personal problems, and he had thought about letting Eric know what he thought about people who did. Now Mitch was planning to use the once useless information to keep him and Aaron safe. It also didn't hurt that Bridget had tried to sell the property some time back for Eric, so Mitch had walked the property with his wife on more than one occasion. Aaron had gone outside to see if the lights they had turned on in the basement could be seen from outside the home. Mitch decided to inspect the first and second floors while he was gone. But he and Aaron had decided the basement would be the safest place to reside. There were 2 important reasons for this decision. First, if someone did stop in, they would start upstairs, giving notice to the intruders. Second, if needed, the basement had a rear exit that led directly into the woods. I walked the property, down to the street and around. Couldn't see any lights coming through, Aaron said. He walked over, opened the back door, and lit a cigarette. And you can't see the car from the road. He was trying hard to start any kind of conversation. It wasn't working. Finally, "Are you going to ask me what I was doing getting in the car?" Aaron asked Mitch without turning around. He knew Mitch well and had known his friend was more than a little upset. Mitch thought about a smart reply, but he also knew he was going to be stuck with this person for an undetermined amount of time. While he was pretending to look for something in one of the bags from the store, Mitch could see Aaron walking towards him, holding a small television set. "I thought we might need this to keep up with the news. I don't know why, I just threw it in the back of the car. But I did, and we need it," Aaron stated flatly as he laid down the TV and moved back towards the back door. Over the next several hours, the 2 men were quiet and wrapped up in their own thoughts. Aaron was sitting in a corner and prepared to Mitch, almost ready to give in to sleep. Mitch, on the other hand, could not get his brain wrapped around the whole mess. How could this be happening? For the life of him, Mitch could not stop asking himself the same question. How did he get caught up in this? Was he not smarter than that? The portable TV sat in the middle of the room, retelling the same story every half hour. Mitch did not need to see the pictures that were being shown as he listened for anything new. It was same each time. Photograph of Aaron, photograph of Mitch, taken earlier in the year at the company picnic. A picture of the car and the plate. Then a picture of the bank, and finally a family portrait of the dead guard and his wife and kids. How did this happen? Of course, he knew the answer to at least part of this question. But now, as he reflected on how this whole set of events had evolved into where they were today, he had a nagging feeling he couldn't shake. Had his best friend set him up? Bridget had always been there for Mitch. She had many strengths, and listening had to be at the top of the list. He knew he had to get to her and talk to her, get her thoughts. If anyone could help him make any sense of this, it would be his loving wife. "We need to decide what to do next, partner," Aaron broke the silence. From what I can gather on the news, the cops have only one lead and one focus, and it's us. All their energy is being spent on us, leaving the real criminals to get further and further away. There was an awkward pause. Can you get past being mad long enough so we can talk this out? We need to get to our wives. That's all Mitch could think to say. Both men knew the risk. For Mitch, the risk of staying away from his life partner was madness. The choices were to try to get to their spouses for some kind of comfort, understanding, and advice, or to stay put and go crazy until they were caught. Several hours later, with the wanted men living so close together, the best a duo could tell, the police had set one unmarked car in between the two homes. At 3 in the morning, the only light on the small town street was a reading light inside the dark sedan, which was parked illegally. This could be a trap. If we're still up for this, we should take a wide angle through the woods. It was clear to both of them. There could be officers waiting in the woods or in the houses, just waiting for something to shoot at. Be careful, and if it goes bad, don't get yourself killed. The truth may set us free, Aaron whispered. Mitch could tell he did not want the pair to go into this thing mad at one another. A quick hug and a shoulder slam was the best he could do under the circumstances. With that, Aaron was already moving towards the woods. Mitch felt alive. He realized a part of him hoped they would get caught. At least then he would have a chance to tell his story. That is, if he could avoid being killed in the process. After all, they were considered to be armed and dangerous. Mitch was surprised at how well his friend could maneuver through the woods, stumps, and down branches. The moon was barely visible through the clouds. Mitch was having a hard time keeping up. He found he was following more by sound than sight. If there was anyone out there tonight, it would be hard for them not to hear them coming. They would certainly not stealth by any means. He'd slow down once he dropped Aaron off at his place. Man, I've got to stop smoking, he whispered as he tried hard to keep track of Aaron's position. He remembered the last time he spoke those words. He was in the woods as well. But he knew quitting was not an option until this whole mess was over. Mitch had already started his list of things he would change about himself if he could somehow get out of this mess. So far he had get back to his college weight, stop biting his nails, read more, and of course kick the habit. He was thinking about how people turned to a higher power when they were in trouble, and was just contemplating why he hadn't done that yet. He wondered if Aaron had, deciding he would ask him if they made it through tonight. If Aaron hadn't put his hand out, Mitch would have run right through him. Mitch had been lost in his thoughts and had not noticed his friend stopped. Barely visible were Aaron's hands as he began to motion towards the direction of his house. Mitch could see the back porch light through the bare branches. Aaron moved in close and whispered, I just don't know if anyone is out there or waiting in the house, but I know this is something we both need to do. If things go bad, we'll make it through together. Just do me a favor and don't get shot. Aaron's voice broke as he finished, gave a quick hug, and ran off. He had pretty much just repeated what he had said before they entered the woods. They were both more than nervous. He did not move for several minutes as he watched the dark shadow approach the familiar steps that led to his back porch. He could see the shadow stoop down to retrieve something from the edge of the deck. That is when Mitch remembered, using the key that the couple kept hidden for emergencies. He had used it once to check to make sure Julie had turned the iron off after they had gone to visit his parents about a year ago. The key must have still been there because he watched as the figure entered the house with ease. Godspeed, my friend, Mitch thought as he waited one more minute, as if wanting for a gunshot or something bad to happen. Aaron was gone, and Mitch wondered if they were making another bad decision. The light was on in the living room and the spare bedroom as he looked towards his house. Not knowing what he was about to walk into made him stop and stare at his house for what seemed like ages. The lights on at this time of the morning didn't bother him. He was always getting on to Bridget about wasting electricity. But could an agent be sitting there, staying in the guest room? Would Bridget be understanding once he told her the truth, if he got the opportunity? These were questions that were about to be answered. The partners in crime had debated over how to approach getting into the house, and both agreed using their keys on the back doors and moving through the house straight to their wives. Again, Mitch had seen too many movies and was second-guessing this strategy. A little late now, he thought to himself as he slipped the key into the lock. It was strange walking through the house. For the first time, Mitch kind of felt like a criminal. He could hear the grandfather clock in the living room, as well as the television coming from the bedroom down the hall. It was a bad habit they had picked up years ago. The sound they felt helped them sleep soundly. Mitch was hoping this was the case tonight. He really didn't want Bridget waking up before he got to her side. He wanted to be able to wake her himself, and that is what happened. With everything so turned around in his world, he just could not get past how the house and everything in it looked the same. The thought had never really crossed his mind until now. Except for the few involved in this mess, life was going on as normal. Being awoken up from a deep sleep at 3 in the morning would be more than a little startling for anyone. Mitch saw in her eyes that she would have screamed if he had not covered her mouth before rubbing her arm to wake her up. "There are men out front. Are you okay? What's going on? Are you hurt?" Bridget began to whisper. Mitch found out no one was in the house but them. He began to relax ever so slightly and began to answer her questions. He started at the beginning, did not leave anything out. It surprised him to tell the story for two different reasons. It gave him some relief, and it showed just how stupid he had been to follow Aaron. He deserved what came next. The slap landed flush with the side of his face, and his wife fell limp in his arms. Bridget felt so good there. He could have stayed there all night, just holding her. They had kissed and hugged, and she reassured him that she believed everything he had said, and never doubted him, not for 1 second. Then she collapsed into his arms again. It was all just too much. It in no way diminished her strength. It only proved her love and devotion. He could feel her breathing and fell in love all over again. How could he have put this marriage in this kind of jeopardy? Bridget had told Mitch she had taken some money out of the bank. Not much, but enough to help him until this thing was over. So, while she moved through the house, making sure to stay clear of the windows, Mitch went to the bathroom to recompose himself. This had been good for his soul, but it also was emotionally draining. When Mitch came out of the bedroom, Bridget was sitting on the edge of the bed with 2 beers and 2 cigarettes she was about to light. "I'm blaming the smoking on the stress, and we're both going to quit when this is over," Bridget stated as she handed over one of the beers and one of the cigarettes. He could tell she was trying to be strong for him, and he appreciated it. Mitch was just about to tell her as much when the loudest noise he had ever heard began to go off just above his head. The two of them smoking had set off the smoke detector, and it was not going to stop by itself. Mitch had no way to know if the agents were outside hearing and on their way, but he quickly pulled the cover off and removed the batteries in one motion. They couldn't have heard that outside, right? "Please don't go yet," Bridget was begging as she put her butt out in the ashtray. "I need you to stay." Mitch heard the door and fast-moving steps, and he knew he had been caught. Later he'd realized it had been his survival instincts that had made him run, because in reality, he would have been better off if he'd have just stayed and got caught that night. Not wanting to give in unless absolutely necessary, he kissed his wife and moved quickly down the hall to the basement steps. As he was about to go down, he heard his wife telling him to call Brenda and Max's cell phone. She would get it from them tomorrow. She had never looked more beautiful, and then he was gone. It had not been easy for Mitch to maneuver through the basement. It had been a long time since he had done any work down there, and the junk was piling up. Just another project to look forward to when this all was resolved, he thought to himself as he worked his way around the piles. It, along with everything else in his life, would be welcomed. The outside door was just on the far side of the house, and Mitch was back in the woods in no time. The 2 agents assigned to watch Lipton House had only been with the FBI a total of 13 months between them. The pair had not overlooked this fact. They usually had watches with lower risk. If any of the higher-ups thought there was even a small chance of the 2 fugitives returning home, they never would have left 2 rookies on the watch. This thinking would alter the rookies' career paths. Tony Palmer and Justin Fleets had spent several nights really doing a fine job of covering the perimeters of the 2 homes. But for the last few nights, they had started getting lazy. Sure, they'd make the rounds a few times a night and fill out all the reports, but they had decided Mitch and Aaron were not stupid enough to try to come back to their homes. Tony had told Justin he had seen both the wives, and they were both pretty good looking, but not worth getting killed over. So you can imagine their surprise when they heard the alarm sound from one of the homes. Neither man knew what was going on, but any alarm at this time of the morning could not be good. Training had taught them to be cautious when approaching the unknown, and both men were taking this to heart. If they only knew the few extra seconds of caution had cost them the prize, Mitch would have run headfirst into Tony if not for 5 seconds. It was a good thing he'd neglected to replace the light on the back porch, or he would have been seen. Darkness is good, thought Mitch. Once in the woods, he never looked back, knowing Bridget would be able to cover for them. At this point, it was well after 5 in the morning, and still no Aaron. Had he been caught after the smoke detector fiasco, or had it gone so well with his wife that he had lost track of time? Mitch was hoping it was the latter. Mitch also already decided if Mitch was to be taken into custody, he would turn himself in and hope that justice would prevail. As Mitch drifted off to sleep in the back seat of the old car, he was thinking about how nice it would be to see his wife again. He really had fallen in love all over again. How lovely she had looked, even after being woken in the middle of the night. How could she be more beautiful in only a matter of days? But it was true. Mitch was convinced she had changed to some degree. He could not put his finger on it, but there was definitely a change. Chalking it up to strain, he let it go. An hour after Mitch had given in to sleep, Aaron opened the car door. Chapter 18. Mitch was curious about Aaron. He'd been trying to make sense of this whole mess for days. He could not begin to figure out what had happened. The only thing he was sure of was that the circumstances of the past several days had not happened by mistake. Someone had set them up, and the more he racked his brain, he could not think of anyone but Aaron, who would know where the car would be. As they drove back in silence, Mitch's mind began to spin for the thousandth time. "Are you sure you didn't tell anyone about our plan? Even just a hint?" Mitch surprised himself by saying it out loud. As far as he was concerned, Aaron's response was not comforting. A nod of the head and a soft grunt was the only way Mitch even knew he'd heard the question. Whoever had taken his car had only had a short time after he had left to go to the river. The timing of the events had led him to this conclusion. And how did his car end up at the motel? Was Aaron playing him? What if this whole thing was a get-rich scheme by Aaron? If so, who was he working with? Mitch knew his best friend, had many friends at work, and also at the bar. But who? And why set up his best friend and himself? Too many questions and no answers, and he was not ready to confront Aaron. Mitch knew his next move had to be to call Bridget. He needed to see how she was holding up after last night. Max and Brenda were friends of Mitch's before he had met Bridget. The two men had gone to high school together, but did not become friends until their freshman year of college. The two had helped each other through more than one all-nighter cram session. They had been in touch over the years, and their numbers would be on the short list he always carried in his wallet. He also wanted to discuss their next move. Mitch valued his wife for many reasons, including her common sense and problem-solving skills. She would have worked through this in her head 100 times and would have come up with the best-case scenario. He would think of a reason to be alone tomorrow and call her. Waking the next morning, after getting the best night's sleep he had gotten in days, Mitch realized Aaron was gone. After taking a walk around the property, Mitch was convinced Aaron was not around. Thinking about calling Bridget was all Mitch had on his mind. He knew he'd have to tackle other issues at some point. Right now, he just needed to hear his wife's voice. Upon arriving at the house, both men had done a pretty good job of searching the entire place. They needed no more surprises, so Mitch knew the phone upstairs worked. He also had located his phone list from his wallet and retrieved Brenda and Max's cell number. Now Mitch was trying to think things through. Was there any way the call could be traced? Was there a chance his friend's phone had been tapped? Mitch convinced himself the answer was no. Aaron's being gone made this his best and maybe his only opportunity to talk freely to Bridget. After one ring, Mitch heard his lovely wife on the other end of the phone. He lit a cigarette and sat down to have a heart-to-heart. Bridget confirmed within the first 3 minutes what Mitch already knew. His wife had a plan. She explained how she had covered the smoke detector debacle with the two young officers. She had told them she could not sleep and was having a beer and a smoke to try and calm her nerves. She also told them she left the room to use the bathroom and the ashtray must have been directly under the alarm. Simple and straightforward. Who could argue with that? After hanging up, he realized he had forgotten to ask about Julie. She's not as strong as Bridget, Mitch said to himself. Among all the other weirdness, Aaron was not talking about his visit home. Mitch had tried to approach the subject more than once with no luck. Mitch would need the car. He started to think of why he would need to go off without Aaron. Mitch was startled to see Aaron standing in the basement door when he returned. "What's up, partner?" Aaron asked casually. "I was just stretching my legs. This place is about to drive me crazy." Mitch decided to use this opportunity to approach the car issue. "I need to get out of here for a while. Do you mind if I took the car for a drive? It's crazy, but I think my best when I'm behind the wheel." Mitch was hoping this did not sound as corny as he thought it did. "I was thinking the same thing. We'll go cruising after dark. It'll do us both some good," Aaron replied, opening a beer. "Not a good idea for us both to take a chance on being seen together, man. Give me an hour or two, and you can take her for a ride later or tomorrow. Please do this for me. I'm going to go crazy in here, partner." Mitch tried to sound as sincere as possible, but thought he may have emphasized the word partner too much. He had never been a good actor. People could always see right through him. He could only hope that the beer seemed to be staring at had distracted Aaron. "Tomorrow, I get to go first," was all Aaron said as he moved up the stairs. "Thanks, man. Where are you going?" Mitch questioned. "I need to stretch," was the response, but not the response Mitch was expecting. The clock was ticking, no time to waste. Meeting Bridget was more important than worrying about Aaron was doing upstairs. While driving to the motel, Mitch concluded Aaron was going upstairs to see what Mitch had been up to earlier. Why else would he be going up, especially right in front of Mitch? He could have waited 2 minutes, and he'd have been gone. Movies again began to pop in Mitch's brain. How many movies had he watched over the years where one of the friends betrayed the other? Too many to count, that was for sure. What he could not figure out was why Aaron had done this to him. In the movies, it was always for one of the several reasons. Mitch ran through the list, one at a time. Money, jealousy, power, greed, some kind of revenge, and of course, a woman. Replaying the events up until now, with the new suspicions, Mitch was wondering how he could not have doubted Aaron sooner. Mitch thought, could I really be this dumb? Will the police ever believe my tale? Would I believe it? Mitch was not sure. Bridget was his only hope. He needed her strength. Chapter 19. Bridget was standing in the doorway, with her robe barely clinging to her soft shoulders. Mitch could see the lights in the room were off. Candles had been placed throughout the room. As always, just enough, he thought. There was food and drinks on the table. But before he could make it to the table, Mitch was pulled to the bed. Mitch smiled to himself. She missed me too. No words were spoken. Mitch wondered later if this should have been some kind of a sign. He wanted to focus on his wife. He really did. He wanted her to know how much he really missed her. Repeating this fact over and over again in his head did not help. Right now, he had pressing issues. He needed to know what his wife thought. Lying next to her, rubbing her back, Mitch whispered, "Will it break the mood if we talk?" He was startled at how fast Bridget moved from under the covers and headed across the room. She was lighting a cigarette when she said, "Take a hot shower and we'll talk over dinner. Then we can spend the night holding each other." Her smile made Mitch know everything would be all right. Mitch had always been a shower guy. He loved the feel of the hot water starting at the top of his head and running down to the tips of his toes. He really felt like things would work out as long as he had the support of his wife. Over the sound of the shower, Mitch thought he could hear Bridget moving around in the other room. What was she up to now? Dinner is probably being moved to the bed, he thought. Even with his feelings of optimism, Mitch knew the road would be long. The legal system would probably have him tied up for a while. He knew he had better enjoy and take in each moment spent with his wife tonight, for tomorrow, who knew what would come. I think this would be a good place for us to stop today. As always, thank you for joining me. I look forward to next time when we'll check back in with Mary. Thank you and have a great day.